Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the next edition of the DFS Down Under Show, presented by Draftstars. Draftstars are Australia's #1 AFL daily fantasy platform, offering Australian and New Zealand customers to win big cash prizes. And speaking of cash prizes, it's live final week. There will be a $100,000 winner by Sunday evening. I'm looking forward to hosting the live virtual event. Thank you to Draftstars for reaching out, but we do have some business to start with. This is Friday night preview for the Giants and the Tigers. And as always, my colleague who breaks down the news, breaks down the fantasy goodness for me, Hef is back. How are you today, babe?
We're here to get some drinking money for Sunday, are we, Smatho? Maybe get a little result for us on the Friday. I'm very well. You've been somewhat over-racing all week with this live final on the way. It's disappointing that we couldn't all get in the same room and cheer at home, but it's still going to be a massive event regardless. 100,000 to the winner. What more could you want from DFS? Looking forward to it, but we're going to do the Giants again on a Friday night. And just when you think we might have got a handle on them, they've pulled about 6 more changes.
Oh, yes. Those changes we'll talk about in a minute, but yes, they did throw me a curveball a couple of hours ago before the show. But quickly on this live final, it has become a little bit of a tradition now that we get a betting market on the actual $100,000 winner here. As I bring up with the good folks here at Playup, who have now provided the 2021 Draftstars 300K live final. And gee whiz, Hef, I'm not sure you've been all over this market here, but there has been some significant market movers in this particular market. So before I scroll down, we'll have a look at some particular players. Is there any ones that you're keeping an eye on as potential smokies or friends or mates that are in the live final that you kind of keen to have a wager on?
Yeah, this is quite different. I did look when it was first announced, and it looks quite different to when I haven't looked at it since. How Liam Swan's on the same level as Willen has got me absolutely stunned. Willen and Brody have basically been the two big guns this year. Obviously, you've got the GOAT there, JK, right at the top of the market. A bit easy, I see, at 23 out to 26, but hasn't had the impact on the AFL season like we've seen from Brody, especially this year, and Whelan, we know, has been dominant the last couple of years. That's a bit of money for the Bristle man there. So he did get out to $51 because he told me, and then he's obviously snapped it up. You are going to win 100 if you win, Bristle. I don't think you need to back yourself again, but he's into 34. It's a star-studded field, though. As you scroll down, there's some pretty good players as we get out in the market.
Oh, look at that. Matty Lee at 41. Stimpy's at 41. T. Better, 41. A little bit over, in my opinion. Clanger's at 51. I'm sure he'll eat some of that quite soon. You scroll down here.
He's only got the one ticket, and he's in there at 50s.
Yes, in 50s. Like, as you can see, there are participants here with 2 tickets, and there are some with just the one. So if you want to get involved...
Off the map's backed himself as well, has he?
Oh, yes, he's come down. He's come down here. Now, obviously, if you can't really pick out a winner, you can come down here and look at the top 5. There is a bit of top 5 market as well. So for those guys who consistently on the top of those top 5s, then yes, this could be the market for you here. Bristol man there at $7 for a top 5.
Is the top of the market. That must be because he's run top 5 in a number of those contests, because he sooked to me how close he was getting a ticket on multiple occasions. So the bookies have taken notice. Yeah, Brody at $7. Geez, a little each way play for me there.
And you can go all the way down here to 26s here for the guys down here. Reddy, he's the superstar of Adelaide sports scene there, and he's there at 26.
Tommy Wren.
Tommy Wren, he's there. What else he got here? KFC 12131, the guy who our KFC guru, he's there. This is fantastic. So make sure you get to playup.com.au. Look for the sports section. Look for the sports specials. It's there. Get around your mates and see if we can crunch their odds in without even know that they're in there. So good luck to everyone in the live final. Now, just quickly, Hef, we are going to be back on Sunday with a preview to the live final. Draftstars announced today that it's going to be the Gold Coast Suns and the Essendon Bombers down in Geelong on Sunday afternoon, the 3:20 game. So I'll get you back on the mic in a couple of days' time, and we'll do a comprehensive breakdown of this particular match. But we want to talk about tonight the Giants and the Tigers. It's a 7:50 p.m. start here on Friday night. Cats are currently favourites at $1.59. The line's around 9.5. We're at Marvel for this Friday night game. So the Giants wanted to play at the undercover deck. So obviously no crowd, no weather issues. But in terms of issues for the Giants, they did announce a few changes today. I have to get my notes here, so I'll make sure I do it right. So Kennedy, Lloyd, Hogan, Mumford, Hopper, and obviously Josh Kelly, who was laid out last week. They're in. Out go the side is Riccardi, Briggs, who did really well last week in the ruck for us. Toby Green's suspension has been upheld, so he's out. Brown is out with a hamstring. Daniels was out with a hamstring. Buntine is out, and also Shipley, who was the medical sub. And for the Tigers, Castagna was the medical sub, and he don't think he got a run. So tell me about those Giants changes. Obviously, there are some life for life there with Mumford and Briggs, etc. But how is this going to set them up for this particular match?
Well, first of all, last week they've gone down to the Cattery with all sorts of new players in the team, and they've knocked off the Cats. Now they're bringing back all the big guns. That's some pretty good ins. There's probably 6 guys in their best 22. Mumford be touch and go. But we're going to have to really dig into how this team's structured now, GWS, because last week we did note that there was some opportunity through the midfield. We happened to come across Taranto as likely to get back into that midfield mix, but now, especially with Hopper and Kelly back into the side, that's really going to shuffle them around. Daniels going out of the team as a guy who was getting some centre bounces, which you wouldn't necessarily immediately think of, but he was. But yeah, there's going to be a shuffle around of the midfield with those 2 big names back.
Now, as always, we get the daily fantasy rankings for our cheat sheets and our resources for daily fantasy. And as always, I've jumped on there to do my notes for this week. And this includes the Tigers are now number 1 in the league for points against to opposition midfielders. And we can see this last week because North Melbourne actually scored 4 of them. The midfielders scored over 96 points in their game last week. We touched on this last week. The Giants are still 4th in points against in for premium backs. So actually the Cats' top 3 actually scored over 91 points. And then Giants are 3rd in the league for points against to opposition ruckmen. So with Mummy back, he's a bit of an on and off, so you might have to take that with a grain of salt, but it is a good side for the Tigers to attack. Is there any other notes that you have there, Hef, from DFR that could help us out in this slate?
Oh, not particularly. It's just when we look at overall sort of possessions, I like to get into the contested and uncontested sort of mix, and basically I found that GWS don't give up a whole lot of them, and Richmond give up all of them. So yeah, it's the data would say, I know you love the data, Smatho, and they would say that it's a good matchup for GWS. We do have a game that we can sort of refer back to earlier in the year. These 2 teams actually played at Marvel. So 2nd time in the year they've played at Marvel, which is probably the first time it's ever happened and the first time it ever will. One thing I'll sort of note there, I did go back and have a look at the midfield setups for both teams. So Liam Baker, you may remember, had a big 118 and was instrumental in the Richmond comeback. They came back to win by 4 points. Interestingly, in that game, Liam Baker attended 62% of the centre bounces. I don't think we're going to see that this time. We'll go and look at GWS in that game. They had a really good mix, but interestingly, with all their midfielders in the team, Taranto was down to 33% in that game. So whether that's a sign that was a game that Hopper and obviously Kelly were both playing. So whether that's a sign that Taranto might get squeezed out again, something to be aware of.
All right, let's get stuck into this $75,000 contest Friday night. Let me bring up the Draftstars lobby here. 7:50 p.m. start, and as always, we do start with the ruck position, and for weeks and weeks, we've always had a few options here, Hef. We've always loved to do a bit of a double ruck stack, but not this week. We've just got the 2. Toby Nankervis at 12,980. He's a little bit been banged up. I thought he'll be touch and go for this week, but the Tigers have named him. And Mumford there at 9,880 after being rested. They're the 2 options. So as I quickly highlighted, it is a good matchup for Nankervis, but It could be a 50-50 split, or do you think there'll be more people leaning on Nankervis over Munford?
Yeah, well, like you say, it's hard to get a proper handle just off those the basic numbers because Mumford, Flynn, Briggs, they've chopped and changed throughout the year. Earlier in the year, Nankervis had a big 107. He was up against Flynn on that occasion. Flynn actually went back at him with a ton of his own. I don't think we can take a whole lot out of that. I think Nankervis and Mumford, this is one of those slates where I think they're both probably priced both a little bit above where I'd want them to be playing them. So I don't have a great opinion either way. Who I play in the ruck would probably depend on what I like of the rest of my lineup and whoever fits in. So if I'm finding myself with a bit of money at the end, I'll play Nank. If I'm not, I'll play Mumford, and that's I'm pretty happy to go at that angle.
Jamie brings up the point. Is there a ruck donut possible in this particular? Are these two players could absolutely crap themselves and only produce a 40 or 50 point score where we can save money for elsewhere?
I don't think so. What do you think?
Look,
I'm not clever enough to get involved with these donut tactics.
I believe when I say
I'm going to be a bit more straight and narrow.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to go for Nank for now. I just think he'll do a good number on Mudford in this particular matchup. So let's move on to defense. And we mentioned it last week that the Giants did have a terrible matchup against Geelong, and they did pretty well in the end. Now look at Isaac Cumming at 12,630. He had an absolute huge score in 116. Whitfield also had 112, and even Sam Taylor, he was absolutely non-existent owned. He was at $10,000 and it produces 103. There he is at 10,730. But as I mentioned, the Giants did also let Tigers have the Cats have some scores as well. So it's a fascinating matchup. There's some good players here. This probably will dictate how you're going to build your teams in terms of your midfield as well, where if you spend up or you spend down. What do you reckon?
First of all, that point on Taylor, not only did he get 100, but he gave the Hawk a decent old toweling up too. He was magnificent, Taylor. Look, surprisingly enough, I think this one could go both ways. Like you say, that the Giants did let the Cats racket them up along the back half. The Cats do that to teams, though, so I wouldn't get too carried away. Richmond's been a team we can target all year, the defenders. Last week, Aaron Hall had a nice big old, I think 126 from memory. He did have 20 touches just roaming around that back half in the first half. So I think it's a pretty good spot for Whitfield. I'll probably be more so than picking players. I'll be looking to play lineups with a couple of Giants, and then maybe look to play a couple of Tigers in a different lineup. I lean to playing the Giants. I lean to playing Whitfield. Perryman's a guy who always seems to fly under the radar a bit, but he does have 100-point upside, so I think he's priced well enough. Cumming, I think, he'll be pretty popular, but he's starting to get... Oh, he's got that up. Yeah. I don't have great... what's the word? A great opinion on these players. Lockie Ash is another guy I'd be happy to go with again at a cheaper rate, 8,000. You can see he's got a couple of 70s there. Interestingly, we know they play silly buggers when they're talking about their team selections. They have named him on the wing, Ash. It's within the realm of possibility too when you see the amount of sort of halfback flankers they've got in their team. They've got 6 genuine defenders there with Iden and Perryman on the bench. So there's no shortage of defenders that might see Ash get released sort of up onto a wing. I sort of lean away from Taylor at 10,000. You pull up his scores there, Smatho. He just doesn't strike me as a $10,000 player. And then you look and you see he's got 300s there. But I'd prefer not to chase the points with him. I'm still working around. Love Whitfield. Like Ash as my cheaper option, and that's what I think for the Giants. Can you tip us into a Tiger, Smatho?
Well, last week, Nick Vlosten, 11,350 this week, had a huge game against the Kangas, 128 there with 14 marks, 20 kicks, 10 hand passes. But it was quite a highlight. He was playing on Eddie Ford from the Kangas, who's not exactly experienced over the years. And obviously, he just didn't actually play on him. He just said, no, you can just do your own thing. I'll do my own thing. So does the question I suppose you have to ask on this slate, does Vlosten have that similar matchup this week? Because we thought about earlier today, I thought Matty Bontime was going to get another go after doing the job on Tom Stewart last week. He did a forward roll tag, but he's out of the side. So that gives me more confidence that Vlosten is just going to continue on his merry way. And at 11,350, unless he gets injured again, which he can be a little bit injury prone, I think he's one of my first guys picked in this particular game for me. I just can't see a particular player from the Giants forward line that he's actually going to take really good care of.
Yeah, interesting. We get a bit cheaper there. We look at the likes of Stack, Baker, and Rioli, who are all coming off some pretty good form. We mentioned, look at Stacky there. A couple of 90s out of nowhere. Rioli, we have mentioned Rioli a bit on this show in the past, not at that 9,800 price tag, but we were getting him cheaper last week. Really cashed in if you played Rioli. There's still a bit of meat there at that price, I think 9,000, just the role he has. Then we mentioned Liam Baker with his big ton last time against GWS. Don't think he's going to have the same role this time. They did fill up against North Melbourne, so arguably they're priced up a little bit. But if you are looking to play Richmond backs, I think they're guys worth working around, and you do have the option to play Rioli in the forward line if you really want to get amongst a Richmond stack.
Now, both Trent here and Cine JC do love a bit of grime time. Grimes is a bit of a lock. Any opinion on him at 9,070?
Well, his reputation precedes him these days in fantasy. Dylan Grimes, doesn't it? No, not really for me. But
okay,
that's the boring angle to take. And we shouldn't forget Jaden Short, because he's the man without Hooley there. 13,000's pretty reasonable. For some reason, his scores have just come back a little bit. But I never have a problem with throwing Jaden Short into the lineup just the way they're structured at the moment.
Now, originally I had Isaac Cumming as my second backman, but I might play the pivot card this week and actually just come down here to Perryman, just mainly on ownership. I know that obviously Cumming had his 116 last week. Perryman, as you mentioned, he does hover around those high 80s. So if he can actually score 3 to 4 more points than Cumming, yeah, sure, that doesn't seem much, but obviously you get some leverage on the field. So in goes Harry. Now let's move on to the midfield. Now, as I said, the data, Richmond are just letting the midfields go. They don't care. They let you score on them, whatever it's chip kicks, through the midfield, contested possessions, uncontested. Name your poison. So therefore, we do have some good quality options through the Giants midfield with Tim Taranto at 15,690. The highlight, I think everyone picked it last week that he was going to get off the chain back into the midfield, and there's that 132 that I missed out on last week because I didn't play him. So he's there. Now, obviously, Josh Kelly was a late out last week, so everyone obviously got off him at 15,530. Little quad issue, but the Giants say he's good to go. And then Jacob Hopper here is also here at 13,450. They're your three main options there from the Giants. Also, you got Lockie Whitfield, who can be a midfielder as well. So let's start with Giants. Any particular one or two that you want to target, or are you just going to be running through many of these options?
Yeah, let's look back at this earlier game, because we talk about Richmond giving up points. Just going to reel off some scores. Hopper 126, Kelly 115, Ward 107, Taranto 107. So all the midfielders. Whitfield had 91. He was sort of just coming back from his layoff. We had Tom Green was in there as well with 85. They were all getting their hands on the ball. So I think that'll happen again. Like I said earlier, though, we've got to work out who's more likely to get in this rotation. So Tim Taranto, before last week, when Hopper and Kelly were in the team, he had 11% and 7% centre bounce attendances at the 2 weeks before last week. So obviously they were short on numbers, and he went back in there and he went nuts. Now that's enough. That sort of goes against the rest of the season. He was always 50% plus. So there was obviously a massive change in role there. Whether these guys coming back is enough for Leon Cameron to send him back to that role, I think there's enough doubt there at 15-6 that I want to be low on Taranto. I talk about the team lineups. He was named in a forward pocket as well, so they're at least selling the idea pretty well. You know how much we should really take notice of that, but they're selling the idea that he might not be in the middle. But Hopper, Kelly, we have to remember that Daniels actually goes out of the team too. So there's the last 3 weeks, he was sort of 80, 60, 50% in the bounces as well. DeBoer is a guy who came into the mix last week, so he's another guy for Taranto to battle with. He played about half the time in the middle. At 8,000, he's a guy that's worth a look if you think he's going to keep that role. But my favourite is probably going to be like everyone's favourite, and that's Josh Kelly, because he's just an absolute machine, Josh Kelly. Earlier in the year, they were mucking around with his role a bit, but ever since they sort of settled on and said, yeah, we need our best player in the middle. Unbelievable run of scores. So I'm happy to play Kelly. I'm happy to play Hopper. Ward, I'm touch and go on because he can get squeezed out from time to time, but he did turn up against them last time. Taranto's the guy that I'm sort of against.
Oh, Hef, we might have lost your mic, mate.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Now you're back.
We back?
Yeah, you're back. Your last sentence, can you repeat your last sentence?
Last one was if I'm fading one of them, I'm fading Taranto.
All right. Very good. Okay. Let's talk about the cheap ones, though. There are some cheap Giants players in this particular match. Xavier O'Halloran is here at 6,360. I don't really know much about his work, but I'm sure you can explain to me in a moment. We'll touch on the Tigers cheapies as well. We've got here Thomas Dow here at 5,350, coming off a 73 last week, which is obviously his season's best, probably career best, I guess. And then Hugo Ralph-Smith also here at the flat minimum 71 last week, which is obviously smashes value. What's that? 17 possessions, 4 marks, and a goal. There are your kind of options there for your cheapies, because obviously if you want to be stacking this Giants midfield, you'll need probably one of these guys in your team. So I'm looking at one of these, but I'm not quite sure, because I was on Xavier, but I'm not really sure at the moment. What do you think?
He's a player with quite a bit of ability. O'Halloran, he was around pick 20 when he was drafted, and he was always pretty highly rated. Always thought maybe you just take a couple of years. You see, his scores are quite consistent without ever really crushing value at this price. I don't hate him. I don't love him. Thompson Dow is my pick of the three. I have sort of spooked him a couple of times on this show before. I don't think I spooked him last time, so all my other spooking's probably been to no avail. But like you say, there's 73. He is a guy that I don't know, there's just something about him that sort of caught my eye anytime I've seen him play. So on the back of getting his confidence up there against the Kangas, I think he didn't get any centre bounces really, but he does sort of run. He does seem to get around the ground a bit, Dow. So I prefer him over Ralph Smith. No great reason, except he's got a bit more of a workman-like name. Ralph Smith's a bit flashy for my liking. He's got the flowing locks. I think Dow's just got a bit more pedigree behind him. I think he's quite a good junior Dow, and I think he's my favourite of those cheap options.
All right, let's move on to the Tigers midfield. And as always, when we do the streams here, Hef, they always seem to be on the cheap side. They're always alluring. You're thinking, yep, they're all going to pop off for 95, 100, 105. They just don't seem to get there unless you get one of them. So the one last week that obviously did pop at zero ownership was Jack Graham, 11,720. Went Coco bananas, well, 146 against the Kangaroos. What's that? 36 possession, 8 marks, 8 tackles.
Huge.
He's going to pop in your projections and things like that. Could he do it again? Are we backing the truck up on Jack Graham?
No, that's more of a chase to me, Smatho.
That's a chase.
One thing I would like to mention, we got no changes here for Richmond, so we can sort of really dig into what they had last week. Nankervis in the ruck, yes. Cochin and Prestia with 80% of centre bounces, and then Shea Bolton had 63. So that was their preferred mix, but 46. The other guy they used was Jack Graham, and that's gone against what they'd done the last 6 weeks. He'd never been in more than a quarter of the centre bounces, and he'd been playing more off half forward. So interesting that they would throw him in there. He did himself no harm at all of what he produced. So I wouldn't see any reason why he wouldn't go in there again. Now, the other guy who's in the mix is Shane Edwards. Now, the week prior, last week, Bolton had 63%, Edwards had 4%. The week prior, Bolton had 13%, Edwards had 63%. So that seemed like a total shift. Whether they stick with that again, I'm not so sure. They do tend to sort of mix it around. But that said, Edwards really hasn't come up for a game in a long time, and he's always had a bit of a reputation as a big game player. Does this qualify as a big game, Smatho? I think it probably does because there's a finals on the line, isn't there?
It is.
Mm.
It is.
But if he's not in the midfield, Edwards, it's hard to have him, even though he's getting down in price at 9,000. He's not a guy that I'd play a lot of, but I can see you could make a case for him as a contrarian type of play and hope that they swing him in there.
Now, Dion Prestia returned last week, and his price has gone up. Also, he's been there for 2 weeks now, so he's back-to-back tons there. I think he's a good pivot if you're looking to play Hopper as your third midfielder, just to make your teams a little bit different. But for this particular slate, I'm just going to go click, click, click.
Wow.
Just back him in. Taranto, Kelly, and Whitfield. Just back him in. Hopefully, Whitfield gets a stack of it down back, and Taranto and Kelly show the way at Marvel. All right, let's move on to the forwards. And obviously, there's not a great set of players here with forward status. Jesse Hogan leads the Giants there at 10,490, and Jack Rewalt at 10,470. Your most expensive single forwards there only. Talk me about any ones that catch your eye straight away, because I've already got a couple, and as you can see, my average salary remaining is not exactly fantastic for this one.
There isn't. No, it's the usual suspects really here. Thinking how well Taylor did last week, it's not an easy spot for you. Probably get Tom Lynch. It's not an easy spot there. I like to dabble in the key forwards without getting too carried away on them. I think you can probably do that again. I do like a couple of cheaper options if I'm attacking these forwards, to be honest here, Smatho. Callum Coleman-Jones is the first one. It actually hasn't gone under 56 in a game where he hasn't been injured, which is pretty impressive at 8,000. And I did notice he took a third of the centre bounces last week as that second ruck. And you are talking about Nankervis getting a bit banged up, Smatho. If they are looking to Coleman-Jones to sort of shoulder the load a bit more, then 8,000, I think he's definitely in the mix. And the other one I like, you like the idea of that, do you, Smatho?
Yes, I do.
You have no cash. Scroll down, there's another cheap guy who caught my eye last week in the Giants game against the Cats, and that's Zach Sproul. Won't pretend to know a whole lot about this guy, but I did notice he had that second ruck role, which with Briggs going out of the team, looks like Sproul will keep that. Wasn't scared to have a tackle. And he has shown an ability to kick a goal up forward. So at 5,000, knowing he's going to get a bit of run around the ground in the ruck, it's not really hard for him to hit value at that low price. So there are a couple of guys who've caught my eye. And the other one, Tanner Brun, is a guy that I've got a really good opinion of as a player, but I'm just a little bit wary of getting carried away with this 71 last week. He attended 24% of the centre bounces, Brun. We know that they were sort of undermanned through the middle. I don't think he's going to get that this time. I think he might get stuck in that forward role. He's been 5,000 all year. He's played about 10 games. There's a reason he's that cheap. And I wouldn't get carried away with that 71 last week, as good as it looks against the Cats.
All right, I'm going to put Callum Coleman-Jones as you suggested. That has left me a little bit of cash there to get up to Sproul, which I might put him in there. That leaves me 1,120. I could go back and upgrade my forward line, but I'm quite happy with that particular side there, Hef. And Mark agrees. He reckons it's Tim to win, as it always does. Look, I originally had Nan Curvis in, and then I realised after I've been going click, click, click that I didn't have enough money for my forward. So Tanner Bruin was on my radar, but I think you've convinced me to say he's okay.
Dangerous. We have to put another lineup in there.
As I said, he won't get that CBAs now because obviously with Kelly back and things like that. So there is, if I scroll back up, there is the side for Friday.
The one thing that does just worry me a tad is he's actually a really good player, Bruin, in the making. I think he's gonna make a very, very good player. So he's not just a small forward who got lucky and got into the midfield. If they do give him the go again, I think he's a worthy player. But I don't want to get carried away with him.
Oh, that looks nice, actually. If Rioli continued his little backline work.
Put them both in.
Don't pick one. It's cost me a second injury. Excellent. All right. So as I said earlier in the show, we're going to be back on Sunday with a preview for the Gold Coast Suns and the Essendon Bombers for the $100,000 first prize for the live final. So make sure you tune in. There will be some information coming out from Draftstars how to be interactive with the virtual live event for the live finalists and for the plus ones who didn't quite get to drink the free cocktails at the event. So stay tuned to all of our socials. So make sure you get the dailyfantasyrankings.com.au for all your cheat sheets and resources. Make sure you check out their Twitter as well, Draftstars at DraftstarsAU on their Facebook page. Thanks for tuning into the show this evening. If there's any thoughts or questions, make sure you leave some comments, leave a like on the videos. That'll be awesome if you can do that. So, Hef, I'll put you away for a couple of days. We'll drag you back out and looking forward to the preview for Sunday, mate.
Absolutely. I am. Good luck to, obviously, we'll wish everyone good luck in the preview, but already an early good luck to everyone involved in the live final. It's been a wonderful initiative, actually, by Draftstars. This is the third one they're running. Didn't quite go to plan, but the contest itself is incredible. So best of luck to everyone, and someone's life is going to change on Sunday, which is super exciting. And we're going to see another belt handed out too. So magnificent. Can't wait for it, Smatho.
I can't wait for it too. Good luck to everyone. Also, get into Friday night, get stuck into that, and we'll see everyone on Sunday for the live final. Cheers, everyone. Congrats, everyone. Thanks for that. Congrats on the win. Congrats on your win, Hef, if you ever enter any contest. See you later, mate.